Y'all, welcome back to my channel. It is Melissa Knits for Fun. My name is Melissa McCall, and I am going to do a video about garment measurements. Some of the feedback I got, because I talked about in my first video the importance of having your measurements if you're going to knit a garment, and I had some feedback both in person and in comments that would be a great topic. And I didn't want to do it in a regular podcast because there are people who might be watching who are like, yeah, I don't need that. So I want to do a little tutorial on it. So measurements are really, really important. And I will tell you, there were some. I took a class by Joji Locatelli, and I'll link her website down below. She's also on Instagram. She sends out, when she does these virtual workshops, she sends it out in her newsletter and posts it on Instagram. I took one of her classes. I took the sweaters that fit. Measurements, those are like standard everyday things. I'm not giving away anything by doing a measurements video. I will not be sharing anything else that she talked about in that workshop about how to make your sweaters fit better. It is a paid workshop. I think it was either $49 or $59 US, and it was a 2-hour class. And I really learned a lot, and I have incorporated some of those to help make some of my sweaters fit better. So, when I first started knitting, when I knitted my first garment, I didn't know my measurements. And I mean, I knitted some baby stuff, and those are easy because it's like 5 to 6 years old or 2 to 3 years old or whatever. Those are pretty standard measurements for kids. And I just thought I could just knit. And so I knitted, it was bottom up. I tried it on, and I could have fit 2 of me in there. And I was heavier than I am now. So there was a lot of fabric. So I had to rip it all out and go back and make a smaller size. So I did have to figure out some of my measurements. Over the years, I've figured out more. And then, like I said, there were a couple I didn't think about with this class that I did. But I want to talk about measurements, right? And one of the things, right, I changed from my last video into a tank top. I don't love how I look in tank tops, so I'm being really, really vulnerable right now, putting myself on the internet wearing this. But I will tell you that to get your measurements right, you do kind of need to wear something tighter. You could do it in just your bra, right? Make sure you're wearing the foundational garment or foundational, basically your bra, right? Make sure you're wearing the bra you're going to wear under your knits, because it does make a difference. When I try on my things, and let me tell you, my bra goes off first thing I get in the house. And so as I'm knitting away, if I try that top on just to see length and stuff, and I'm just doing it over the t-shirt I'm wearing, it may not be right. So if I want to make absolutely certain, I have to go put on whatever I'm going to wear under it to make sure that it sits right. Because, you know, I'm a woman of a certain age, so things don't exactly stay where they're supposed to stay. So anyway, get something either tight-fitting, or if you're doing this with your partner or a really, really close friend and you're comfortable taking it off and just being in your undergarment and your bra, then feel free to do that. Trust me when I say nobody wants to see me just in my bra, not even myself, so I am not going to be doing that. I will be wearing this tank top. So, starting out, the measurement that most pullovers, garments, etc. talk about is your bust measurement. And there's 2 measurements. There's an upper bust, which is this part up here, and then there's a full bust, which is where you are your fullest, right? Now, these 2 are important if there's bust shaping in patterns, because it will tell you if the inches between your upper bust and your full bust are this many, you do like this size bust shaping. If they're this many, you do this. And it's usually like if it's 2 to 4 inches, you do a D. If it's 6 to 8, you do, you know, or 5 to 8 or whatever, you do an F. There may be more. Anything below like 2 inches difference or 4 inches, I don't remember what it is. I think every pattern has something different, but the ones that I've done have been by Crayabea, and I think it's either 2 or 4 that's the shortest. But you know, that's where I am. I usually do a D bust shaping. If I'm doing bust shaping, the regular shaping is called B usually, and it's just a standard shaping. I don't always do shaping. I did one with the Tolsta Tee because I wanted to see what it was like, and I did it with the Kathy cardigan that I test knitted. I'll link both of those below, both of those patterns. And so it was really nice though. They fit really well. The bust shaping, it wasn't as oversized. It was a little bit more fitted. So to get started, and you can do most of these yourself. It's a little awkward, but you can do it. Right under, like you're gonna put this up in your pits, okay? This is your upper bust. And you're gonna measure, don't like, kill yourself. Make it to where that, you know, it fits well, right? You wanna have it to where that you can get a finger in there. But you see, I'm about a 40 upper bust. Well, then the next one is the full bust, and you want to get it. This is easier with a friend, so if you have a friend that you can do this with, it's nicer, but you can do it by yourself. But you know, you want to get it, the back and the front, and you can see it can be a little fiddly, right across that biggest size. And I'm going to back up just a little bit so that you can see. The other ones I'll stand up because we're going to get into waist. And so you can see I'm about a 45. So I've got about 5 inches in here, 44, 45, somewhere around there. So I usually knit about a 51 because I like that positive ease. But so there's that shaping. Then you want to stand up, and you can see your waist has a natural shaping, right? Let me tuck my pocket in there so that it doesn't look so weird. But it has some natural shaping, and you can see right here is my smallest part. And so you want to measure that as well. I measure in inches. You could obviously do this in centimeters. I'm American. We use the metric or the imperial system here, not metric. So I measure, I'm about a 42 or so in the waist. This is important if there's waist shaping. You need to know like how far do you want to go in, and they'll usually give you measurements. And then you have your upper hip, right? You have your hip where you're at your widest, and you can see for me, I come down, I go out, and right about here is where I'm the widest, because if I go down, my hand goes in a little bit. So right about here is going to be my widest in my hip area, and I am sharing these measurements. I don't care. It is what it is. Let me get it turned around to inches instead of centimeters. That might help, though, since we've been talking about centimeters. And I'm about a 47, 46 and a half. Whoops, let me get it down there. I'm about a 46 in the hip area. You can, if you like your stuff longer and you're afraid it won't fit down here in the lower, you could measure that. I usually don't. I like it to hit right about here. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you do is that you measure your length. Where do you want it to hit? So what you do is you go in and you put it basically right up under your armpit, and then you measure down. I like my sweaters to hit me right around here. And so that's about 14 inches. So I know I usually knit my stuff down to 12 inches, and then if it calls for a 2-inch rib. So you want to measure that. Where do you like it to hit you? And, you know, you can measure different points on your body, obviously, if you like it to hit you in a different space. So some of the other ones that you want to do, right, you can measure your neck. This, I don't find this one to be super important. However, if you have somebody like my brother, he does not like things tight on his neck at all. He really like, I used to cut hair in a different lifetime, and I still cut my kids and my brother. And anytime I put a cape on him, he's like, let me get some fingers in there because, man, no. So I know whenever I'm making his sweater, I want to make it a little bit bigger. So knowing that neck measurement, right? And again, you don't want to choke yourself. You want it to be nice and loose, but at least you know, okay, how loose do I need to make it? And what does the schematic look like? Mine's about 17 inches. Some of the other ones that you want to make sure that you take. You need to know your wrist cuff. I'm going to take this phone or this watch off. This one's kind of hard to do yourself, but you want to make sure that you know your wrist because they have schematics. Mine's about 6.5 inches. You want to know your upper arm. Again, these are kind of hard to do on your own, but you can. It can be done. So you want to measure kind of at that biggest spot, right? Where we older ladies may have a little chicken wing there. Just to make sure that it's not too tight. I'm around 16 to 17. I like it usually around an 18 because I like it a little looser. Your yoke depth or your armhole depth, and that you measure from the top of your shoulder to your armpit. I think I'm at an 8 or a 9. Yeah, about a 9 hits me right there. And I like my sweaters to, I don't like really long armholes. I don't want them up in my pits where I'm like, oh, but I do want them to fit fairly good. So I like about a 9-inch armhole depth. This is also known as your yoke depth. And this is something where you can adjust things, right? So if you know, if a pattern calls for, let's say that a pattern called for me, a 12-inch yoke depth. Girl, I ain't doing that. I like 9. I might go to 10. 11 would be pushing it. 12, absolutely not. So I would do whatever I needed to do if I needed to shorten the raglans or if I just needed to knit a few less, right? Because we got the raglans and we're just knitting down to increase it. Maybe I don't. So maybe I split for sleeves a little bit early if it's a circular yoke. So, but knowing that really is important because you'll see on the schematics, if they have schematics, or they'll tell you how long to knit, and you can see how long it is. Some of the other ones you want to knit, you want to know your arm length. So, and this one's really hard to do right here, right? You can hold it, kind of try to get it up on there. I'm going to stand up for this, where you hold it up here, and then I'm just going to grab, right, where do you like it to hit? I like my sleeves about 20 inches or so, 19 or 20 inches whenever it gets down there. I like it to hit and be a little bit longer, and when things block out, they usually block out more. But another thing that you should do, and I'm going to flip this over, do this to where you know how far do you need it, right? Look at what that does. It brought it up to like a 24 when I bend my arm. So I know I need to knit it, even though I want it to hit my wrist. I need to knit it longer if I want to make sure that I'm not, when I pull my arm up, I'm not with like 3/4 length sleeves. Let's see. I'm just looking at notes here to see what some of the other ones are that I might have forgotten. Oh, the crossback and the back waist. So the crossback, that's basically just shoulder to shoulder, and you can do that one pretty easy on your own as well. I'm about an 18 across there. But this one, and I'll show you, you find the most prominent, and I'm just going to turn here. You find the most prominent bone in your neck up here. And that's where you hold it. And then you measure down to like your waist. Okay. So I'm about, I did that in centimeters. I'm about 19.5 inches. That one as well is one that, like I said, all of them are easier with a friend. That one's really easier with a friend. But those are your measurements basically. Get a friend, measure your upper bust, measure your full bust, measure your waist, your fullest part of your hip. Your lower hip if you want things to fit there, because you do need to know, how tight should your ribbing be. Measure your upper arm, measure the length of your arm, your wrist, measure your armhole depth, measure how long you want your sweater from your armhole down to where you want it to hit. It does not have to be at your waist. If you like things to fit differently, like if it's a crop, you want it to hit right at your natural waist, measure that. If it's a longer one, you want it to hit at the fullest part of your hip, measure that. And if you want it really long and you want it at the lower hip, measure that as well. So measure all 3 of those if you like your sweaters to fit differently. I like most of mine to hit right there, like right around my fullest part of my hip. So I have it measured all 3 of them. But if you do like different measurements, measure all 3 of those. Measure your neck. Measure the length of your arm. Do it as well when you have your arm like this, so that you make sure that you're not starting out with a nice sleeve and then all of a sudden you're up here. And sleeves do, as you do that more, they will like shorten a little bit, so check that out. Measure your back to back so that you can make sure that you're getting it to the right width up here, that you're not, yeah, I'm good down here, but boy, when we started out, it was too much up here. Because you can modify sweaters to start with a larger size and then only increase to a smaller size if you are really broad shouldered but lighter in the bust. I have a friend who her upper bust is is larger than her full bust. And so she does some of that. And let's see, what am I missing? Am I missing anything? Your back to your waist, right? That's just another measurement to see how long do you want that back part to be. And this will let you know you might need to do some short row shaping in the back. Sometimes that's up at the top, but you might want to do some at the bottom if you're not measuring how far you want it to be in the back, but you're measuring how long you want it to be from here to here. You might want to do a few short rows back there just to lengthen that back a little bit. So that's why those measurements are important. And so again, I just wanted to put out a little thing to focus on measurements. Grab a friend, grab a tape measure, you know, grab your partner, or grab that tape measure by yourself and do some measurements, right? At least get an idea of what your measurements are in order to create a well-fitting garment that you will actually wear. All right. Well, thank y'all for hanging out with me and learning a little bit about measurements. I hope that this helped. Give me a little bit of feedback, comment, subscribe, etc. Do my little housekeeping. But really do give me some feedback. Was this helpful? Was it not helpful? Are there other topics that you'd like me to do at a later date? All right. Thank you. Bye. Y'all have a great day. Hey y'all, it is Future Melissa here, and when I went to the yarn shop tonight for knit night and I was going to upload that measurements video, I realized I had forgotten something. So I know that the measurements I showed you might be a little bit awkward to do all by yourself. So what I would suggest you do, if you're not able to do them by yourself, if you don't want to contort that way, you can go to your closet, grab your favorite fitting sweater, and measure your sweater. Measure from arm to arm for the bust. You can measure, at the top for the top bust, and of course from the armhole to the hem, the back from right below the collar usually down to the hem, the length of the sleeves, etc., etc. So I hope that helps, that if you're discouraged because you're like, man, I just don't bend like that, or I don't think my measurements would be right if I did that, go pick your favorite sweater and measure that. And I hope that helped to make it a little bit easier. See you on the flip side.